What is up, fam? Skorch the Fears. I don't know what episode it is because my VA completely forgot to put that in the title. I think we're on episode 67 or 68. We have the amazing Jeremy Davis. Now, how this came to be was Jeremy and I are two people who have known about each other for probably ever, but never actually talked to each other just because we haven't, just because life gets busy and you can't talk to literally every single person who's in sub 2. But he hit me up a month ago or so and was just, dude, we should talk. We should know who we should actually know each other, right? And I was, man, why don't you just come on the podcast and we'll freaking make it happen, right? And just have an amazing conversation here. So, Jeremy, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to Skorch the Fears.
Bro, I'm honored and it's an absolute pleasure. Yeah. I mean, for the record, I just wanted to kind of connect with Jonah. I was like, I've never actually talked to this guy and he's doing deals. He's got his own strategies and his own style. And so I was like, hey, I wanted to actually talk to you for once. And he's like, just come on the podcast. I'm like, all right, screw it. Let's go.
Yeah, why not? I mean, I just know you're a leader in sub 2, so I know you're doing deals too. So I'm just why deprive the people from this awesome and epic conversation, right? I'm going to find out so much about you. I mean, you're the guest. So we're going to talk a lot about you, a lot about your story, fears, how you overcome them, all of that stuff, right?
Yep.
But yeah, real quick for the people that don't know you, talk about your business for a second and just talk about what you're doing. And yeah, just what you're doing in real estate and all that good stuff.
For sure. And sorry, I'm not going to be looking directly at the lens because the
you're good, man.
Anyway,
I'm learning just real quick. I'm learning how to look directly at the lens. It's super annoying. It's very inhuman, but my social media manager's like, you've just got to get used to it. I'm like, this is awful.
The hard part is that for making reels and social content, I can look in the camera all day, but now I want to make contact with you. I want to look at you. And then I've got,
it's hard.
I get a little bit closer, but it still doesn't work. But anyway, all right. So a little bit about me and my business. I am a direct to seller marketer. I'm not a wholesaler. If I can avoid wholesaling, I will. I try to keep the deals myself, whether it be creative or whether it be a fix and flip. But I really want to try to keep the deals ourselves. And we wholesale, obviously, the deals that we don't really want to keep. Rewind a little bit. I've gone through a lot of fluctuations of what this business looks like. And I've learned the good ways to run the business and the bad ways to run the business. And when I first started, first of all, for the record, I've had to overcome a lot of fears. So this is going to be a fun conversation, but where my business was and where my business is now is completely different. When I started, I joined sub 2 very shortly after I tried to become a wholesaler. I was learning about wholesaling, direct to seller marketing. I actually go back a few more months past that point. I tried to be a full fix and flipper here in Utah. When COVID hit, I left California. I ran away from Los Angeles as fast as I possibly could. And I moved to Utah. And when I got out here, I was trying to do flips and we toured probably about 70 or 80 properties. We got outbid on every single one. And finally, one property for a wholesaler out here, one of the biggest companies out here, we bid 120,000 over asking. And they said, congratulations, you won. And we're super excited. Yay. We definitely are overpaying, but the market here in Utah supported it. And so next morning they call us and they go, bad news. We're selling it to a friend. And so I'm, you know what? Screw you. I'm taking my money and I'm going to create a marketing business, a wholesale business, and I'm going to become one of your biggest competitors. And I did that. So I took the money that I was going to be using towards down payment with a hard money lender and I put it towards, I learned very quickly that Utah was the most competitive market in the nation. It really was. We had the most amount of appreciation. We've got about the same amount of investors that Phoenix has, but we're 1/3 the population. And so it was really, really hard to stabilize a business out here when every single homeowner thought their house was literally made of ivory and gold. So I joined sub 2 and I'll be honest, in the beginning, it probably was a bad thing for me to do that. And everyone always asks, I know sub 2 is such a great community. It is, but I was a moth to a flame and I was shiny object left and right. I was learning about options and I was learning about wraps and seller whatever, all of it. I wanted to be a sponge and I wanted to absorb all of that. And what I thought was that, if I know creative finance, every seller is just going to lift up their skirt and say, buy my house on terms, right? I really thought that was going to be the secret password I needed to get sellers to come down on their pricing. And what I realized was I just needed to work on my sales skills. That was number one. But the market here in Utah wasn't ready. And they weren't ready for terms because honestly, any house could be listed on the market and it would go for $50,000 to $100,000 over asking within average days on market in 2021 was 2 days.
Hmm.
And so extremely hot market here. We had, at one point, we had 33% appreciation month over month, which meant that you could buy a $500,000 home, hold on to it for 6 months and do nothing to it. And you would make $90,000 in appreciation. And so that created a very artificial bubble for flippers that they could literally burn down half the house while they were rehabbing it and still fix it up and still make money on the property. So it was very, very difficult. So, and then again, joining sub two, I would say that I allowed the shiny object to control me too much. So I wasted a lot of time trying to still work this Utah market until I got better at being a closer. And once I did that, I went nationwide. And
Jeremy, can I interrupt you for a second?
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah.
I want to interrupt you for a second. So you're talking about shiny object syndrome.
Yes.
That is one of the most common problems for real estate investors ever is shiny object syndrome, because there's a 50 bajillion ways to make money in real estate.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you know that being a closer was right for you, right? That's the issue that I think most people deal with is it's an almost like, how do you know thyself, Socrates type of thing, right? Where how did you figure out that you're a closer and that's what you needed to be doing? Because I feel that is one of the most valuable things you could drop on the people listening right now is how do I choose what to do?
Mm-hmm. Great question. All right. So here we go. So you're asking, how do I discover my avatar? Who am I? Who is Jeremy Davis? In the beginning, when I joined Sub 2, I was known very quickly as being a 50-50 integrator visionary. I took the rocket fuel test. And if you guys haven't read that book yet, you'll understand that certain people are visionaries, certain people are integrators. And I literally tested 50-50. I think every time I took it, I was 98% visionary, 96% integrator. And people saw that I built out the Discord and they started calling me the integrator and all the systems that I built out and stuff like that. But what I realized is that I was not 50-50. I was just afraid of letting go of tasks because I didn't believe that other people can do it as well as I could. So I tried to literally convince myself that I loved spreadsheets. No, I don't at all. And it wasn't until I started working with partners, I started working with other people that I started to identify that there are people out there, for example, that don't want to be in the spotlight, right? My partner, Alex Smades, he's a sub 2 student. You've never seen him ever, right? He doesn't go to any Zooms or anything like that. He loves being in the background and building out systems and running the integration side of things. And I didn't realize until I started working with Alex that I really am a visionary. And closer just happens to be a tool that I have in my tool belt that also helps us get deals. I didn't necessarily have to be a closer. It was actually, I'll go back a little further. When COVID hit my career, I was actually a sommelier. I was actually the wine guy in Beverly Hills. And so it was my job to explain and convince to a table why this $25,000 bottle of grape juice should be opened right now and drank, right? So it really wasn't an easy task to sell something that expensive, but if given the opportunity, if I could identify the opportunity to pitch a bottle that expensive or offer a deal at a discounted price, that's what I was able to identify. Every table was a cold call. I would look at their shoes, their watch, their clothes. I would be able to identify what's their budget. And so that is something that I brought into real estate that I realized that I didn't realize in the beginning was going to be such an asset until now, when in my team, I make 99% of the phone calls are all my team. But then if we need to get that number down or get it to be a great deal for us, then I'll hop on that phone call. But to go back to your original question about the shiny objects, being a closer or being an integrator or being a transaction coordinator or being a gator lender, all these things that exist within the sub 2 community, these are your personality traits, but they may not represent who you are in a year from now. They may represent who you are today. And I'll say this, I think a lot of gator lenders, no offense to you guys, I think a lot of you gator lenders are doing it because you're afraid to get into investment. You're afraid to build a business of investing. So you're trying to just hold on to making money from this small amount of money that you may have. I want to encourage everybody, if you've got $5,000 to your name, you should go out and get get deals and start to elevate your business that way rather than trying to make $500 a pop. Why wouldn't it be amazing to make $50,000 on one deal? And that's what I really to encourage to a lot of people. But anyway, to go back to your point, the shiny object syndrome, it really didn't hit me until I went to another mastermind. And there was a guy named Dan Walters, amazing dude. And at the time when I went to this mastermind, where my biggest problem was that I was running two businesses, right? I had Cash Quick Buyers, which was my acquisition business, but I also had Prime Virtuals. I started a VA company that not a lot of people know about, but I tried to replace expenses with income. And so I created a virtual assistant company in the Philippines. And what I didn't realize at the time was I was proud of owning two businesses, but each business was malnourished. I wasn't giving it the time that I needed to do so. And so when I went into that mastermind, first and foremost, everyone in there said, I should kill the VA business. I should take it behind the barn and shoot it in the head and be done with it. And I couldn't do it. Emotionally, I couldn't do it. Looking back now, I almost regret that decision. I kept it alive. But what I did was I put it on the back burner for 3 months. And I made a promise to the people there in that room. I said, let me focus on my acquisition business primarily, but I will come back to my VA business. I will come back to Prime. In that 3 months, or before that 3 months started, Dan Walters, going back to him, we were at dinner and he sat down and it was just him and I locked eyes. And he goes, there is a saying that him and his partner repeat to themselves all the time. And that is, we don't do that. We don't do that. Right. Again, in this industry, there are 1,000,001 ways to become successful. Airbnb, land development, short sales, whatever. It doesn't matter. Cars, it could be crypto, whatever. It doesn't matter. Right. But all of us as entrepreneurs, we really see the grass is greener on the other side. So we allow that shiny object to occur and attract us. And so when he said that to me, we don't do that. I went back to my partner and I said, this is something that we need to incorporate into our business model, that we don't do that. We need to put the blinders on, avoid every other distraction, no matter what we see. It could be short-term rentals. It could be Airbnb, midterm rentals, whatever it is. We don't do that. We really don't do that. If we're going to try to make money on something, it has to be a vertical column to where we will make more money off that one deal versus trying to do a completely different deal elsewhere. And so with that, I put 3 months of time into my acquisitions business, only my acquisitions business. And in about 2.5 months, we netted about $241,000. And that was proof of concept that when I put all of my time into focusing on becoming a master of one thing, that it actually works. It really does. And that was at the moment, that was when I stopped going to, no offense to Pace, I stopped going to a lot of those Zooms because I was tired of being a sponge and I needed to be an executor. I needed to actually start doing things. At the same time, Prime Virtuals, it suffered. I mean, literally, it was a baby drowning, asking for help. And I was like, yeah, I'll get you, I'll get you, I'll get you. And the VA business really, really suffered, so much so that we almost went under. And at the time, I had an actual call center. We still do have the call center now, but there was overhead. I was paying for rent and all that stuff. And it really made me realize that I'm being spread between one and the other. And so when I then went back to the VA business and started focusing on Prime Virtuals, then the acquisition business started suffering. And that was a secondary affirmation of what I needed to see, that, yeah, Jeremy, you need to focus on one thing. And so with that, I learned to then scale out my VA business, bringing on a director of operations. And that's also when I brought Alex into that. In the beginning, before Alex was my partner, Prime Virtuals was my business, and I wanted to keep him out of it. And then I realized the saying is, I would rather make, 50% of $1 million than 100% of 10,000. And so when I brought Alex on and we brought our other team on, then now Prime Virtuals is self-sustained. It's doing well. And I spend maybe 30 minutes a week in it total.
So hold on. I want to ask you a couple questions. So with Prime Virtual, right, with your VA business, did you have a partner, or were you doing it all on your own?
I was doing it all on my own in the beginning. And it was
so horrible. That's the thing, right? I think here's what I've learned. I'm gonna, and you can tell me what you think of this. This is something I learned really recently too, right? Is that as a CEO, as a visionary, from now on, if I'm starting another business, I need to already have a COO in place, whatever it is. An integrator, that's the same word as a COO, right?
Yep.
It's what I'm doing with, there are so many different things. I have my wholesaling business that right now I'm keeping to myself because I integrated it enough where I think very soon I'm going to be able to hire a COO. But that took me an extra 3 years, where if I had started with an integrator, we would probably be already doing double or triple or quadruple.
Right.
And now I've learned that for instance, like I've got a mastermind that I'm starting to do, but there's somebody else doing all the operations, right? We're starting to do a mastermind. It's going to be a sub 2 mastermind. You'll hear about it. Pace is going to start promoting it soon. It's going to be cool. And also my buy and hold stuff. I talked to Rachel Schwartz. I don't know if do you know Rachel Schwartz?
She's a co-leader. She's Colorado's leader. Yep.
Yeah. I literally just got off the phone with her and was, hey, why don't you just integrate? I'm going to do it. My dad wants to get into the business. So he's going to be a lead gen for specifically creative financing. I'm making it specifically creative financing in Colorado Springs, and be like, why don't we just own these houses together? You integrate everything. You create systems for him and me. And then and you manage the rentals, and then I'll bring all the private money, and I'll teach my dad how to do sales.
Right.
And we're starting to talk about that and starting to get into it. But the point is that I think you can do several things, but only with partners. I think that a partner, if you want to have several different businesses, because a lot of people have come to me and been, Jonah, why would I ever get a partner when I have to split 50-50? Well, it's like, yeah, but how many different pies do you want? Right? My wholesaling, if I could redo it when I was starting off, I wish I found an integrator earlier. And it's cool. It's still making me a lot of money, and I'm chill with that, and I'm fine with it. And I think within the next 6 months, I'll be able to hire a COO, which will be the same thing. I'm really, really hoping. But it could have been so much quicker if I had just started with one.
Yep.
Right. So I think that's what you were getting at. And that's what I just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, it really is. It's the who, not how model.
Right.
If you guys haven't read that book, it's who do you hire, not how do you do it yourself. And that is something that is, I said to you in the beginning, that I was a 50-50 visionary integrator. And that's because I was afraid of letting go of those responsibilities, because I was afraid of failure. I was afraid of, if I let this part of my business go, it's going to fail. Right. But what I realized was that as soon as you start hiring who is the right person to hire, that's the biggest eye-opening experience ever, is that it's not about who, not how. Is not about who do you hire for cold calling, right? That's obvious. You get a VA. That's easy as done. But who to do a high-level task for you, that's scary for a lot of entrepreneurs to let go, because we want to control the business, because we feel if we're not doing it ourselves, that it's not going to stand on its own 2 feet. And it kind of goes into the hustler mentality, that a lot of us are hustlers, but the eventual goal is to create and scale yourself out of that hustler position to eventually you become a manager, and you've got people below you, to eventually after that you become a president, which is, if you look at Pace, he's a president right now, right? He kind of pushes the direction of where the business goes, but there's going to come a point where Pace isn't going to even be involved in any of his businesses. And then at that point, you become a chairman of the board, right? Where all you show up is maybe once a quarter. You're like, hey, I just want to
think he's that chairman of the board type of
status. For some of his businesses, yes. Some of them, he still is hands-on, right? But what my point is some businesses, there's owners that literally just watch their checks roll in and they don't even touch the day-to-day operations at all. I think Pace will get to that point, but he still loves doing things. He still loves being in the day-to-day.
Yeah,
right? That's for sure. But if he wanted to step away, he absolutely. But that's the thing that a lot of people have a hard time doing, is letting go of those responsibilities. Like, prime example, when it comes to my social media, right? All the reels that I post, I hire a videographer to come out, flies out to me once a month. And in one day we film about 90 different reels. And then I hire an editor to do that. And so basically throughout the entire month, I get the editing done, I get the posting done, I get everything done for me. And I only have to commit one day to be able to do all that for the next month. And that's what a lot of, Ryan Pineda does that, Pace does that. You realize you have to hire other people to do that. Versus for me, if I was to sit here in front of this camera and be like, ooh, I'm going to create 90 reels by myself. Do you know what that would do to my business? That would literally eliminate me from the day-to-day, and my business would crumble. Right. And so anyway, we got sidetracked on that one.
Yeah, I mean, we went a little bit off the rails, but it was
Right.
really entertaining and
Good.
really good stuff. So don't worry about it either way.
So where I think I left off was I was nationwide and I was known as a closer, right? I was advertising JV with JD. I was getting in all these leads over and over and
Hold
over again.
on, Jeremy. I want to bring you back a little bit because I want to start with my
Go.
classic question because you're going off the rails and I
Okay,
love it.
let's go.
But I wanna get back to I wanna start this the way that I always start this. And here's how I always start this. When you were just beginning, let's go back a little bit in your story. Let's go back to when you were just starting out. You hadn't even joined Sub 2 yet.
Right.
Because we're talking to some people who aren't even part of these communities, right?
Okay.
What were your fears going into real estate? What was holding you back then, and what was screwing you up with getting deals done and taking the first steps? I wanna start there, and then we'll get back to
Okay. Can
where
we
you were later.
can we time travel way far back?
Oh yeah, we
Okay.
could try to travel anywhere.
All right.
You can take me to the dinosaur age if you want.
We're basically going back. I'm 41 years old, so we're going back all the way. All right. So I grew up in a family of poverty. We really did. We had food donated to us. Every home we lived in, we were either evicted or foreclosed. The times that my dad was able to buy a house, got foreclosed every single time. Lived in our car, lived on the street. That's what I grew up in. On top of that, my mom was an absolute hoarder. Straight up dog urine, feces everywhere. Up to the ceiling was trash and garbage. And it was definitely not a lifestyle that any child should be raised in, but I didn't know better. But what I was raised in was seeing financial failure was commonplace, right? And so that's something that really does and still affects me today. But I realize now I've overcome that, where I was terrified of being my father. I was terrified as no matter how hard he tried, he still could never really get ahead. And my mom really was not a good partner to him and never really helped out or anything like that. But I grew up in that environment. And so for me, I never wanted to have kids. I never wanted to get married. I was just very terrified of ever becoming my father. Fast forward to my 20s, I was in a motorcycle accident, a very bad motorcycle accident in 2010. I was riding in the canyons. I got hit head on by a Harley who lost control, crossed the double yellows, hit me head on, and sent me 150 feet off the cliff. I broke my back, my arms, my shoulders. I got airlifted out, and I was disabled for about, I want to say 2 years. I was fully disabled. And for about 5 years, I was heavily dependent on painkillers. In that period of time, I had money saved up. I was a medic before that. That's actually specifically, I worked in the film industry as a set medic. So I would sit on movie sets and hand out, Band-Aids and Tylenol and tampons and whatever the actresses needed. But I did that for about 10 years and I made good money and I saved up money. And when 2012 rolled around, it was the right time to buy real estate. We know that. All of us know that. And I went to a bunch of agents. And by the way, this is maybe one reason that I have a slight disdain for realtors is I went to these agents and I said, I want to buy a house. I've got money. I had about $500,000 saved up, literally. And I want to buy a house. And they came to me and they said, you can't. You've got great credit and you've got the cash, but you don't have the work history to get a conventional loan. Right. And I took that answer as the only answer that exists because, of course, you're an agent. That must mean that you know what you're talking about, which we know now is definitely not the case. But they said, why don't you go back to working in restaurants? Go back to serving tables. And so 2012, I went back to being a server, what I did when I was a teenager. And I got kind of chased out of the market. At that point, 2012, the LA market, Los Angeles just started shooting up and up and up. And I just kind of got priced out of the market over and over again. In the period of time that I was doing that, I decided to go back to school and finish my degrees. And so I went to finish my business degree. And one of the classes, we did a mock stock market trial, right? So you played with fake money in the stock market. And I did really well. I did like 48% return in one semester.
Ooh.
I remember my professor goes to me and he goes, "You're a natural." And I'm like, F yeah, I am. I'm going to now take my money, my real money, and I'm going to put it in the stock market. And I lost over $300,000. Yeah, I really did.
That's the classic.
I failed so hard. And I failed because, for one, I was high on painkillers. I wasn't thinking straight. Looking back now, and I felt sober at the time, but when you're dependent on painkillers, You don't really know. You're not thinking sober. Number
Mhm.
two, I was never raised with money. So once I started to, implement my money into different investments, I just was, I'm going to spend it here and I'm going to invest in this. And I really wasn't thinking about the long-term effects of what I was doing. And then finally, I was making emotional decisions in my investments on the stock market to where I was just doing bad investments. And then I was holding on to those bad investments and I wasn't counting my losses. I just was going deeper and deeper. Right. And so
Right.
finally, I cut myself off. I had about 500,000 to start. I think I ended at about $70,000. And I said, I'm done. I'm done with the stock market. I really saw myself becoming my father. I started doing that. And so then I said, no, I'm not going to allow that to happen. Then when 2020 hit, the COVID hit, I was at that point, I had moved my way up from being a server to being a chef, to being a private chef, to finally being a sommelier. And I said, I'm done. I don't want to be in California anymore. You know what? I got to becoming a server because I was ready to become an investor, but I didn't know how to do it at the time. And now I've been learning how to do it. I'm going to move to Utah, which is the worst alcohol state in all of America. So I purposely moved to Utah to burn the boats behind me because I wanted to let go of the career that I was comfortable holding on to. Right. Like in the restaurant industry, you go there, you make your tips, you walk back out, it's crack, right? You just want to continue to do it. But to let go of that was a very scary thing for me. So I moved to Utah. I interviewed at a couple of restaurants because, again, I was scared. I was scared of letting go of that. I was putting all of my trust into me. And then I said, I'm done. You know what? The restaurants I went to, they hit me up. They're like, why is your resume is amazing. Why are you here? And you're hired. All of them are like, you're hired. And I go, you know what, guys, I thank you for the opportunity, but I'm not doing this. So that money that I had saved up, that was what I went into to try to fix and flip. And that was kind of the beginning of it. And so getting over the fear of being my father was the hardest part about this. But just before COVID hit, I got married to my wife, Katie, who's also my transaction coordinator. Absolutely fantastic having it literally in-house. But meeting Katie, we didn't want to have children either. We both lived in Los Angeles, and moving to Utah, realizing that I'm never going to be my father. I've overcome that. There's no way I'm ever going to be my father. We decided, hey, let's have a kid. So we just had our first kid. He's just turning 4 months old right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's a mindset to where if you're doubting that you're going to be successful, you are not going to put yourself in the position to become successful. And I'll say this, I'm still scared of financial failure. I'm still scared of making mistakes. And it's funny, you can actually identify it in some of my KPIs. Our KPIs are wonderful. If you look at them like on the surface, about 10 out of 10 deals that we get under contract, they go to closing. They close.
Nice.
We don't have anything. You say nice, but here's the thing. 10 out of 10 means I am not taking enough risk. It means that I'm trying to hold on to deals that are home runs that are always going to close because I'm afraid of failure. And so my current emotional task is to try to be okay with getting more base hits. Our average assignment fee is about $55,000 right now.
Yeah, that's a lot. That is huge for Utah. That's my average in the Bay Area where the houses are million plus. Well, just FYI, guys.
The average here in Utah is actually relatively high. It's similar up to the Bay Area, but I'd say the average here is about 40 to 45, but still to be at 50 to 55 means I'm not taking enough risk. I'm not getting enough base hits. And so my partner gets mad at me. If we get a deal in a rural town, I'm normally like, nope, I don't want it. We don't want it. But now we got to get more wins, right? If we're going to keep scaling and we're going to get more acquisition managers, we've got to keep them fed. So maybe that deal to them is food for them, right? Paying their acquisitions, paying their commission. It's important. Yeah. So I'm not going to only try to have the home run deals, but my goal is I want to have 70% of deals close. I want to have 30% fallout. I want to be okay telling that family that I was trying to stop their auction that I'm sorry, I can't buy this house. And I don't want to say that, but you get my point. I need to be okay with letting some deals die. And that's something that I've always been very hard to do.
My man, that was freaking awesome. Your story is sick. Thank you so much for coming on Skorch the Fears. What can the people do for you? What do you need? Where can the people send? I mean, I guess you don't do JV deals, so you don't want people sending you deals or what?
And Utah, Utah, anything Utah. I'm happy with Utah. I'm actually also in Vegas. Vegas and Utah.
How do they hit you up? How do they find you?
You can find me on Instagram, the Jeremy Davis. And then I am very shortly, if you see behind me, this is my podcast studio that I'm about to get up and
let's
running.
go.
And so if you guys want to subscribe on my YouTube, it's going to be youtube.com/@ the Jeremy Davis. Same thing. So I'd love that. I think subscribers is all I really care about. And if you guys have any other podcasts that you want me to speak on or be on, I'm starting to do those networking rounds. And obviously I love private money.
Like that?
Bring me all your money. That's it. Exactly that. youtube.com/@ the Jeremy Davis. But
guys, do not sleep on this man. This man, based on that story, this man will make you $200,000 in 2 months just by having a 30-minute conversation. I can already tell. I can feel when people are money makers, and you're one of those guys.
Thank
you, for sure.
Awesome, man.
So
it's been an honor.
Hit him up, follow him on Instagram. By the way, you should. I don't know if you've been paying attention to the Instagram verification stuff. Have you been paying attention to this?
The blue check mark?
That what they're doing, they're making a Twitter where you can just pay for it.
Oh yeah, I've already applied.
Okay. It's coming out.
Like 15 a month, I think, for each platform.
16 a month, and it's happening now. I got verified. Chad's verified.
Okay, so I'm on the wait list.
You'll get there.
Yeah. Okay.
That's all I'm saying is look out for it because I don't know what's happening with it. Jeremy, you are a beast. Thank you so much. Don't hop off. I want to talk to you about a few things after the podcast as well. Everyone else, come on next week. We've got normal time. We'll be back to 6 p.m. MST. Come on, guys. Thank you so much for being on Skorch the Fears. Obviously, comment and subscribe if you're enjoying this type of content. I swear to God, this is the week where I'm gonna do my first YouTube video that isn't my podcast. I've been screwing up on this because I've been focusing so much on Instagram, but I need to be. You will be getting a lot more YouTube content coming from me. Obviously, if you're trying to do deals with me in the Bay Area, Sacramento, or Colorado, those are my markets. Hit me up. And then if you're doing Vegas or Utah, hit up Jeremy. Jeremy, thank you so much for coming on. Do you have any last words? Any last words? I'll give you last words.
This is an honor, man. Thank you.
Okay. That's Skorch the Fears, guys. I will see y'all next week. Let's go.